All right, for those who don't believe in evil, all you have to do is look at the events of January 1. We all looked straight in its face. We saw the dark side of a terrorist heart and mind whose sole purpose is to use violence against the innocent and to strike fear in all of us, all in the name of some cause. That very morning, you also saw the resilience of this city, who refused to be cowed in fear. And to that end, I reached out to the foremost expert in the country on hard targeting against terrorist attacks, Commissioner Bill Bratton of New York City and Los Angeles. I asked Commissioner Bratton if he would come to New Orleans to give us recommendations on how to make the city safer against terrorist attacks, but in light of our unique culture. This report is the outcome of that work. But before I go further, I must thank the New Orleans Police and Justice Foundation, who stepped up at my request and immediately provided the private funding for us to get this project up and going as soon as possible. I want to personally thank Dara Schaefer and Melanie Talia and Elizabeth Bowe, who are the leadership of the New Orleans Police and Justice Foundation. And thank you for shepherding this project. And most importantly, I also want to thank, and we don't do this enough, but there are a lot of private donors who fund the New Orleans Police and Justice Foundation. They are behind the scenes, but it's because of their generous heart that they provide the money that make it possible for us to reach out to get some things started sooner than later. So thank you for all you do for this department. Commissioner Bratton put together a team of top experts in the field of risk management. They are known as the Teneo team. Therefore, the report is the Teneo Report. I would also like to personally thank our own officers and staff who worked alongside the Teneo team, and for the Teneo team recognizing and honoring the fact that our own people are also experts in their own right. They have expertise in managing very large crowds and events, and it was very much a respected give and take. And alongside those, I also want to particularly thank our business community and the residents of the French Quarter community. You know, they met with the Teneo team on a couple of occasions. They gave their input. They gave their own expertise of what it is to live day in and day out, doing business in the French Quarter and the whole uniqueness of that wonderful community. So they too are experts in their own right. But now, as we turn to the report, as you review the insights and the recommendations of this report, we are not done. As a matter of fact, this is just the beginning. We NOPD have already started to implement many of their recommendations that they pointed out along the way. We did not wait for the report to come to a conclusion. We were immediately involved, and we will continue to implement the recommendations that are ours to actually implement with no need to seek approval. There are many things that we're doing already. But now, the bigger question is before the city itself. And they must make some decisions regarding the level of closures that are acceptable to this city and to this community. And with that, I would like to turn it over to, if anyone would you like to say a few words, Carl?
Yeah.
Okay, please do, from the Police and Justice Foundation. So
My name is Dara Schaefer. I'm chairman of the board of Police and Justice. We just want to say that we're continuously happy to facilitate these types of engagements on behalf of the city and NOPD. when we ask for donations that are sizable, people step up immediately. They do wish to remain anonymous. But again, we're happy to facilitate these things so that you can benefit from it.
Thank you, thank you. All right, we'll take a couple of questions if you have any, which I'm sure you do.
Somehow left, we'll start with you, Elizabeth, go ahead.
Okay, I have 2 questions, if you don't mind, Superintendent. Obviously, the big headline from the report is making Bourbon Street a pedestrian plaza, right? What are the NOPD's thoughts on that, on making it pedestrian only? Let's first start with that question.
Well, NOPD, this chief, this superintendent, works for the city of New Orleans, and that means the community needs to give direction what the community wants. We will implement the decisions of this community, and so we are prepared in either direction that the city chooses. So that's the best way I can answer that. We've heard and we have opinions as well, but in the end, we're public servants of this community.
You did say this is just the beginning as well. This is just step number 1. So what still does need to happen? Does this have to go before city council, get the mayor's stamp of approval? What kind of needs to happen next?
That's exactly the point. So the big decision now has to do with Bourbon Street and whether or not the community and the city, the collective voice of the city, through their council and through the mayor, who's the chief executive officer, that collectively they will have to make a hard decision. Do they make a decision for a permanent closure, or do they make a decision for something less than a permanent disclosure? And that's really the voice of the community. And that's where we hear our directives are through the mayor, through the city council's voice.
Mike?
Yeah, Chief, thanks for commenting on the report. So among the many recommendations, a lot of them refer back to the lack of resources, lack of officers.
Right.
I know that is an uphill battle for this department and has been for some time. So what is the department and city prepared to do to address the understaffing of intelligence unit, the communications across the different divisions, and even spreading out of officers along the parade route when the department's so short-staffed?
Yeah, so that is a critical issue for us, is the short-staffed nature of the department. And so there's a yin and a yang, and if I can explain, I, as your superintendent, refuse to put someone in the seat or make them a police officer because we have a need for more police officers. If you do not and should not be a police officer, I will not allow you to be hired, okay? But because of that, we continue with vacancies because of the yin and the yang. Therefore, we've leveraged our relationships. And that is what you see with our relationship with the state police, with our county, our parishes. Relationships matter, and they're genuine. Yes, I do have a goal, we have a goal to hire 300 more officers. We're doing what we can to hire the right people without compromise. We are not New York, and that's where we also have to take the balance of, thousands of officers, they have resources we don't have. So we must learn to police smart, which we are doing, but vacancies and the lack of resources impact our ability to really serve this city completely in the manner it should be policed.
If I could follow up, does that give you the ability to take some of the recommendations, like beefing up the intelligence unit?
Yes, absolutely. That's going to be one of my number one of all the recommendations, is how to bolster the intelligence issues in our department. And the reason for that, we have a state fusion center, which is to be kind of the hub of intelligence for all of us in the state of Louisiana. Pardon me. However, I actually was the executive director of the first fusion center, or the second executive director in the state of Washington. So I have some foundation in what a fusion center should be. And I think that we should internally in New Orleans build out a fusion center to complement the state's fusion center. That it was a big area of the report, and we are going to be working toward building that up on our own in NOPD and not have to rely on other fusion centers. So it's not a takeaway, it is to be a complement to other sources of intelligence. But we need to take the lead in that for our own city. Yeah.
Chief, you said you guys have already started implementing some of the recommendations.
Yeah.
If you're able to speak on some of them, I know this will be the first time that we don't have so much security in the area with festival season coming up. And what do you want the businesses in that area now that that Tier 1 protection isn't here anymore with festivals right around the corner?
Yeah, so a couple of things. You saw some of the barriers that we have now gone out to rent right now until the city again makes some decisions on the types of barriers they want. You see them on Bourbon, and you've seen them now placed out in the Jackson Square. And those are what we call secure guard. They're silver. They kind of look like a Jersey barrier. Being sure that we have the ability with the rivets to raise or lower wheels in those barriers so they can be quickly moved, making sure that the officers who are working out there are trained on that and they have accesses. All of those things were recommendations we immediately implemented. When this presser is done, we're going to be going to that room behind you to do a tabletop exercise for the French Fest. We do indeed had used tabletop exercises for things like Super Bowl, some of the more massive or larger scaled events like Taylor Swift. But we have decided under the leadership of Chief Gantier, he said, you know something, we're going to do a tabletop for even French Quarter Fest. And we're going to start doing that and embedding that in our practices. So we're going to do a tabletop just for French Quarter Fest. So those are just some examples right now that we're implementing, and we didn't even have to wait for the report to finalize.
Chris?
Related to the recommendations, you say intelligence gathering is your #1 emphasis. As you study the recommendations from Bill Bratton's team, are there any recommendations that you think would have made a substantive difference on January 1st?
Boy, that's a question, Chris, I'm not prepared to answer just off the cuff. I think all of those recommendations are excellent recommendations. So, obviously the issue of barriers is an issue. And so I think the fact that talking about how to place barriers and what is best for the quarter, they obviously, Teneo, and we expected this, would make the recommendation that the gold standard is a total pedestrian area. That is the gold standard. They stated it from the very beginning. That's not a new surprise to all of us. But that only really addresses the issue of car ramming. Keep in mind that even on New Year's Day, this particular evil-minded man had placed bombs along the Bourbon. No barrier would have prevented that. He also had a backup plan and had considered being an active shooter from a balcony. So the barriers would not have prevented that either. So we need to keep in mind that a terrorist is evil intended who wants to use violence to create fear. So no barrier would have stopped that. What this particular report focuses on is vehicle ramming. So if it had been a natural or if it had been a fully closed, permanent closed pedestrian walkway, but it wasn't.
Now, related to video indexing, the report references that an ordinance change might be needed. Without commenting on what the council should or shouldn't do, I guess as a law enforcement officer, what is your view of video indexing and the abilities or tools that it might provide to the
I think
public?
video indexing is a smart and efficient way. The report pointed out all it is doing is time stamping. And so it allows an officer, instead of having to look at video from, they're looking for something between this hour and this hour that could be 2-3 hours. They have to literally sit there and go through it all. where video indexing allows it to be more efficient to find what you're looking for. So I'm personally someone who supports video indexing. I think it's smart and efficient policing, a good use of time.
Carly?
Hi, Chief.
Hi.
So one of the other recommendations was to fully close St. Charles and Canal when the parades are rolling. Is that something that would fall under NOPD's purview? And can you talk more about what the next steps would be?
Yeah, so that's a good question too, because of course they also recommended that. You have to have a mindset, and if I can help frame the thinking, when you have hard closures, those are always going to be your gold standard, right? You hard target the ability to go down St. Charles. But the reality is too residential. What are you going to do with the people who live on St. Charles? How do they get out? How do they get in? Think about even our elderly people who can't walk a couple of blocks to their homes. And so everything is a balance. And so, yes, I appreciate the Fort Knox approach. That's great. But is it actually something that's viable? And we have to come up with maybe a compromise. And that's what we try to do with the serpentine approach, to at least slow that traffic down. Does that mean we're wedded to it? No, that's why you put all the minds to the table. And you start having these conversations going, you know something, I hadn't thought about that. Let's think about this, let's think about this. So that is why the hard closure was not really a reality for our community.
And so would those, if you were going to do a hard closure, would that fall under NOPD's purview, or would that have to go through City Council and the mayor?
Actually, I am someone that I am going to be collaborative. So for instance, when we did the serpentine course, I called the council member up of that area and I said, what would you think of X, Y, Z versus a hard closure? So I actually went to the elected, who's the voice for that community. And we did seek out, you know, what is your reaction to the thought of closing St. Charles? And that obviously was, no way can that happen. So it has to be collaborative. You know, having authority is one thing, and being smart is a different thing. And just because I may have authority doesn't mean I want to use it that way. I want to be collaborative.
Sophie?
Yeah, thank you, Chief. You said that the intelligence recommendations were sort of your priority, or maybe the most implementable in sort of shorter term. Are those recommendations that you can implement, again, similar question, on your own, like the Fusion Center, or are those all things that the City Council?
No, again, I would like to reach out to experts on how to put together a more robust intelligence gathering, that type of thing. It is a priority, but I also need to back up. There are some immediate priorities which we have addressed in terms of barriers and barrier placement and choices of barriers. That's also a given, that's a priority. But in terms of a long-term, if you notice in the report, I really like this. They broke it down into immediate up to 6 months. 6 months to the 12 month is the medium game. Long game is the intelligence. So in the long game, the intelligence issue would be the long game I would like to start working on now in order to get it in place for the long game. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
just one follow-up on
Yeah.
that. Do you have any estimate of how much that would all cost and where that funding would come from?
Whenever you hire experts and we use our own experts, it's expensive. And so I don't know what the cost is, but that would be something that it's not for today because I don't know, okay?
All right.
Chief, related to the Sam's Meat Market shooting in December, do you
Yeah,
have any
that's okay.
understanding as
That's
to
okay.
when-
Chris?
Do you have any
Chris.
understanding
Chris.
of when the gun
Chris.
ended up
Chris,
in
I
the hands
understand.
of the
Excuse me, one
in the hands
second,
of
Chris.
Honduran
Excuse me,
criminals?
Chief.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chris, we'll take care of it after, like I said, we'll pull aside, we'll be happy to help you.
Okay.
Hold on one
Yeah,
second.
I think we have
another question.
another question. Yeah, that's okay,
Well, Chief,
yes.
heard you loud and clear. This should be a community decision. Heard how you talk about that. As we move forward with a community decision, which community?
Well,
Is it the
yeah,
French Quarter community? The downtown community?
Yeah.
or citywide?
Well, I think at this point, Will, that's a fair question. So at this point, this report is now in the hands of our city council and is in the hands of our CEO, our mayor. And they also now need to decide the path of how to be, what voice to listen to. As I have said, we have already listened to a lot of voices. Obviously, the community of the French Quarter is the one that's centered on the impacts of a terrorist attack. That community will also be the most impacted when it comes to a decision by the city as to whether or not Bourbon Street will be a permanent closure or if it will not be a permanent closure. So I would assume that the city council collectively, as the voice, they are the representatives of the voice of this city, and the mayor as well. She is elected as the voice of this city. It is at this point, they should be the ones to be now deciding what voice, what manner will they go about making the decision of a permanent closure or something less than that. That's the answer to that. I would assume that they will be listening closely to the communities that are most impacted by such decisions, such as Uptown, St. Charles Avenue people, because we're not just talking Bourbon Street. We're talking Mardi Gras and the parade routes and things like that. Okay? I think
yeah,
Mike.
Just a quick follow-up if I could, and all the recommendations seem to be well thought out.
Yeah.
Were there any things that jumped out that you just thought, that's not gonna happen here, that's not feasible? And for example, I'll just give you one example.
Yeah.
The NOPD's always used like the clusters of cops at intersections. They recommend spread them out.
Yeah.
You know, one cop at an intersection. So are there any things like that that jumped out in which you said that's
No,
not feasible?
actually, as a matter of fact, Mike thinks that's a great example because even we were out there, you know, all the chiefs, we were out there. We were every night, we were looking around the Bourbon, we're doing our laps around. We also noticed, hey, they're clustering. I remember even one night in the moto calling up and saying, hey, let's get them spread out. We recognize those kind of things. They recognized it too. It's fair game in the after action portion of this report to say, hey, this is an issue that must be addressed. We know that. And so we were working on it. Like I said, we didn't even wait for a report. We knew, and they even brought it to our attention. And we were like, we're gonna get this corrected. We understand the human nature. People are gonna bunch up at the corner and talk and partners and all of that. But we were absolutely trying to be on them. We need you in that crowd. You know, that's actually why we tell officers to wear their hats, is so they can be seen. And those are the kind of things that we try to be mindful of. So thank you, Mike, for the question. And I think I got
We have
everybody
one
in the
last
room.
question.
Okay, I
Something
want to be sure I answer questions.
One that shows this is clearly y'all's lingo, not mine. Security, obviously top of mind, especially as we're heading into French Quarter Fest weekend. We know those barriers, extra barriers are going in place, and you mentioned doing a tabletop exercise.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on what that is?
We won't do that because that gets into tactics, and so we're not going to discuss tactics in a public forum. The fact that we're having exercises that help us think through. Okay, that's the purpose of a tabletop, right? It's no different than planning a party in many ways. You might want to get together and make sure have we got everything set up that we want to set up, but we don't share the game plan. So that's what we're going to be doing, and we're going to be doing that for our other, we're not going to have us Taylor Swift to do those kind of things, yeah. Y'all, thank you, appreciate it, and thank you
Councilman
to y'all.
Johnson.
Thank you very much, yeah.